Hello, my name is Jeremy Allen Gould, and I am here to confirm between God and of man. The rumors you've all been hearing are in fact true. Just kidding. But really, I started this podcast because I freaking love music. I was lucky enough to book some great, amazing bands back in the day, and I've been lucky to stay in touch with many of them over the years. This is a place to hear their stories. Thank you so much for riding along in this journey, and I hope you enjoy what you hear. With that said, the rumors are definitely true. Welcome back to the Rumors Are True podcast. We welcome the guitar god himself, James Duke. You might know James from Mark McMillan, Matt Redman, Micheal W. Smith, Curtis Chapman, Jesus Culture, as well as his band, All the Bright Lights. I've known James for quite a while, and it was awesome to reconnect and hear so many cool stories from the legend himself. Thanks so much for tuning in and supporting this podcast. I'm looking forward to the new year and the new guests we have in store. So, with that said, the rumors are true. What up, James? How's it going, buddy?
Hey, buddy. Good to see you.
Yes. How are you doing, bud?
Doing all right. Christmas break has arrived for my children, so I'm mourning my freedom that I usually find during the day without them. But it's Christmas, so families are supposed to be together. It's gonna be great. It'll be fine.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. I love that.
I'm a good dad.
I know you are.
Sometimes you just need a little space, but it's Christmas time. We're gonna chill.
Absolutely. Home Alone on the TV. The usual.
Good old-fashioned family Christmas.
What's the favorite family Christmas movie?
Well, my favorite is probably Christmas Vacation.
Great movie.
But I feel like my kids, well, or at least some of them, might be a little young for it still. You know, the pool scene.
Yeah. I just had that conversation the other day, too.
I mean, me personally, I've watched it already like 3 or 4 times this year. But I would say Home Alone 1 and 2 and Elf are probably the family's favorites.
That's awesome. Those are great ones. That's awesome.
But I really love The Family Stone. Do you watch that one?
The what now?
The Family Stone.
I don't think I've seen that.
You've never seen that?
Should I have seen that?
Yes, it's so good.
What is it?
Well, like the cast is awesome, but it's got Diane Keaton's in it. The guy that was from that TV show Coach, I can never remember his name.
Oh yeah, Craig something.
Luke Wilson's in it. Sarah Jessica Parker's in it. Rachel McAdams is in it. It's great. It's really awesome.
I have not seen that.
You need to watch it. It's funny.
I bet it is. I love Luke Wilson.
It's funny. What's your favorite Christmas movie?
I would actually probably say Christmas Vacation as well, to be honest with you. Or I'm one of those that thinks Die Hard is amazing as well. But yeah, Christmas Vacation. We went to a party the other day, and a family in our city group at church, they dressed up as all the characters, and their little daughter dressed up as Aunt Bethany, and she looked just like it was incredible. It was incredible.
I like that.
I know. But anyway, yeah, so I love that movie, and I'm not really a Christmassy guy, but I do enjoy a couple of Christmas movies from time to time. And I do like a couple of Christmas records.
Which ones?
I love Sarah McLachlan's Winter Song. That record's incredible. Then I love Jimmy Eat World's last cover of Last Christmas. I think that's one of my favorites.
I don't know if I've ever heard that.
You need to listen to it. It's a banger. Like, I mean, it's already a banger song anyway, but it's just, I don't know, there's something about it I love. And then I love the Beach Boys record, the Christmas record, and then you know what? I actually love John Mark's Christmas record. I think it's great. Mm-hmm. It's really good. That's cool. Yeah, I probably should like more, but those are the ones on top of my head. What are your favorites?
All the Sufjan
Oh yeah, I forgot about
ones are so magical to me. And then I love the Over the Rhine Christmas album.
Oh
I think they've
yeah.
done a couple, but they have one that they have that song All I Get for Christmas is Blue, and it's
Oh,
so good.
they're so
Um,
good.
yeah, and then the Rat Pack ones,
Oh yeah,
obviously. So
obviously.
obviously,
Sick. All right, well, let's delve in a little if that's cool with you.
that's
Just
cool.
kind of wanted to talk. I don't remember when you and I first met. I know I probably met you through your brother, but I can't remember. I think you and I kind of met up in Charlotte one time when I was in
Yeah,
town for some weird reason. I don't know why
I
I was
think
there.
the first time we probably actually hung out. I think we knew each other on Instagram or one of those things, you know.
Yeah.
That's where through all our friends and stuff. But I think it was when Sunbears came and played. You were with them.
Oh, that's right. And that was
So
at
they
the
played the
Evening
Evening
Muse.
Muse.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And
That's
I think that was maybe one of the first times we hung out.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I went there for some I don't even know why I was there, but I think you and I just met up at a bar one time or a place that you and I met up and had a drink and I can't remember what else. And then I do remember I worked the John Mark show at the night, the whatever.
Oh
July.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I know you had
uh,
played that night.
yeah,
That was
yeah.
a cool.
That was a fun night
Yeah,
for sure.
that was a nice night at the night. It was awesome. so,
Yeah.
so stupid. Anyway, so tell me, let's talk about James Duke growing up.
But yeah, well, Jacksonville boy, you know.
Woohoo. Duke.
And so yeah, I was born there, lived there most of the time. We actually had this small stint in Georgia, probably when John was actually born in Georgia, in the
Really?
Douglas, Georgia. So we lived there for like a handful of years, maybe 3 or 4. I don't remember exactly, but my parents were pastoring a church there for a little while. And so, but we moved back right when I was starting kindergarten back to Jacksonville. And so, yeah, that's where I was raised basically. And yeah, my parents are preachers and missionaries. So they traveled all over while I was growing up. And yeah, I just kind of did that. Homeschooled, unfortunately for high school. Not unfortunately, but sort of unfortunately. I kind of forgot how to talk to people for a couple of years, I think. But yeah, I don't know. I grew up, with the Bowser guys and
Oh yeah,
all kinds of mutual.
Jared says hi, by the way.
Yeah, I bet he does. All kinds of all kinds of lots of mutual friends in Berlin. Since I've known him since we were teenagers, and
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of just grew up playing. I really grew up in Neptune Beach, and so skating and surfing and playing guitar, and yeah, that's what happened for me.
When did you start pick up a guitar for the first time, or when did that kind of come up? And was music blaring in the home? Kind of how was that?
Yeah, my dad always had a guitar in our house. Different ones because he would end up giving whatever guitar he had away, and somebody else would give him another one. So it was like this revolving acoustic guitar thing that would happen in our house. But I never saw him play it one time. I never saw him play guitar at all. But it was always in the closet or sitting around somewhere. And so I would pick it up and bang around on it. But it wasn't until I was probably 12 that I started getting interested in it more, kind of because I had a couple of friends that were starting to take guitar lessons, and they had electric guitars, and so I just wanted to be part of the club. And so I remember I got a electric guitar for Christmas one year, and we all went and took lessons on the same night, the same teacher. all three of us. And it was like, it was cool because it like immediately became like a community type thing, playing guitar. Like it wasn't, and so that kind of made it way more fun, kind of way more competitive, like, you know, like in a good way. And just like, just getting to, even when you're just learning, just being able to play, try to jam on some songs with some friends automatically, like it kind of right off the bat, I was kind of exposed to that. And I think that probably helped a lot. So, but yeah, and then over the course of probably about 5 years, I kind of stopped skating and stopped surfing and stopped doing all that kind of stuff because I was just all about playing guitar. Like I'd be in my room all day, every day almost, just blaring albums and playing along with them, trying to learn guitar solos like Jimmy Page or Joe Perry or whatever guitar solos, and just like
shredding in your room.
I got up just shredding. And there was always like music and loudness going on in our house. We had four kids, and my parents, they always had music playing, but it was always like Integrity's cassette of the month and stuff like that, you know? Mm-hmm. And so like they were always jamming the worship music in the living room. And, but then my older brother would be in his room listening to, you know, U2 or Led Zeppelin or something like that. And my sister would be listening to The Cure. And then John would be in the garage playing drums or listening to something else. Like we were always, it must have sounded insane in our house because there was always multiple records being played at the same time.
Were your parents bummed on the secular music?
Not by the time I got old enough to like start really getting into music. I think my older brother and sister got the brunt of that. I think there's a really fun story where my mom found a cassette of my sister's. It was either like a Faster Pussycat album or like maybe Aerosmith, but I can't remember. But obviously it was one of those two. But she must have looked through the lyrics and felt the demonic spirits coming out of it, and took my sister to the mall, to the record store, and let the cashier, who was definitely not the person that sold it to her, probably, let him have it, you know. And I'm sure my sister was probably like, I don't know how old she was, 15 or 16, and obviously wanted to kill herself, I'm sure, right then. But they kind of chilled out. I think by the time I was kind of getting older and started to get really into music, they didn't really have much to say. I was a pretty good kid, you know. Yeah. So I think as long as they, you know, I wasn't really ever out getting in trouble and doing God knows what. You were just busy
shredding in your room.
I was just busy jamming for the Lamb and listening to my secular music, and so they were fine with it.
Was John playing with you as well in there, or was it just you by yourself?
Yeah, he started playing. Like he started. I remember got his first bass, and then he got a guitar. He liked drums for a while, and so like he would kind of switch around, but he would definitely be in his room. We went between sharing rooms and not sharing rooms, so I can't remember exactly the timeline, but he would definitely be in his room practicing and playing too.
I know you mentioned your dad had a guitar in the house. Did he play as well, or was there like just this like in the family? Was there like musicalness throughout the history of the family, or?
Yeah, no, he had never, like I said, I never saw him play it. I think maybe like when he was younger, he could play a little guitar or something, but I don't know. Like it was just funny because there was just always a guitar, but I don't know. He just, it's like he he just made sure there was a guitar in the house for some reason.
Well, it's
my
meant for
older
you.
brother,
Meant for you guys.
I know my older brother and sister never were interested, but me and John definitely were.
Isn't your older brother? Doesn't he do sound too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we stayed at his house one time when we were in Austin. I think something like he was out of town. He was like out of town. I think his girlfriend like met us at the show and was like, "You guys can stay here." So we stayed overnight. I think he was out with Willie Nelson or something like that.
Yeah, I just saw him. I hadn't seen him in a little while, but I just saw him a couple of weeks ago at the Ryman. He's out with Jason Bonham doing that Led Zeppelin experience. So I went and hung out at Soundcheck and listened to him. But yeah, he's been out mainly monitors, but he does do front of house too. But I mean, everyone from like Guns N' Roses to Elvis Costello to Blondie, B-52s, Modest Yahoo, like just all kinds of really high profile acts all for years.
Is he front of house?
Mostly monitors, but
monitors.
he'll some of the artists he does front of house, but I think he's mainly does monitors.
What a cool gig.
That's awesome.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's still out.
I guess if you don't want to be your home all the time.
He had stopped. He had stopped for a few years actually, and then just kind of decided to pick it up again. But I think he likes it, and it's just. I remember when I used to first go and see him play or working, even on the Willie Nelson tours, which that was probably like 15-ish years ago, or maybe a little bit more when he first started doing that. And I'd go see him at different shows, and he was definitely like the youngest guy, on the crew, just like old road dogs, like just like back lounge. 3 people smoking cigarettes, like just grumpy and not even talking to each other, just disgusting. And he would like be sitting there like making jokes and being funny, and like they were just like ignoring him. And I remember being like, I wonder if this is fun for him at all. But but now it's like he's the more seasoned, I should say, road dog, Yeah. But yeah, he's always I've seen Willie Nelson so many times. It's always so much fun.
I think he's coming here soon. Is he out with him now, or is he with the Bomb or whatever?
Yeah, the Bomb.
Okay, very cool, dude. That's awesome. It's so cool how all 3 of you guys are somehow linked to music in such a pivotal way. I think that's so cool. Very very lasting. From your parents and stuff. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, they were definitely always really super supportive, even though they weren't musicians themselves. They were always so supportive and buying us gear and guitars and stuff. So yeah, they were great.
That's awesome. That is so cool. Sweet. So I know you kind of mentioned and delved into some of the bands, but I wanted to go over some of the influences and your favorite bands and favorite records, and favorite shows that you've kind of experienced or changed your life, I guess I should say. Just name some of the bands and the records that you just really touched your life.
Yeah, I would say like probably the first record that really affected me real strong was the Joshua Tree. And that sort of carried on till now. U2 was just they're just the best growing up for me. And also though, I kind of, when I was young, probably 13, 14 is when like all the Pearl Jam and Nirvana and all that kind of wave came. And that was huge for me. And so, the first couple Pearl Jam albums, the Mazzy Star. I remember just sitting in my room listening to that for hours every day.
Oh gosh.
Oh yeah, I love that album.
I know.
So much.
I know. That song never. That record and that song, just never get old.
So good, and so like all through that, and then like more, and so like the '90s were just for me were pivotal with all the music that was coming out. It was so exciting. And then when Tooth and Nail started up, like that was like a whole new wave, because that was honestly like the first time I really listened to like Christian quote unquote music, you know, because I never listened to CCM music ever. Like, and so, but when there was this record store that opened, it was like a Christian record store that they just had everything, like everything you could imagine. No, it was called The Rock.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It was over on Beach.
Yeah. And they, like, those guys, Chris, and who owned it with his parents, like he was like an encyclopedia of Christian music, like every genre, the most obscure stuff he would have. And so you could go there and he'd let you listen to stuff, and and like the Tooth and Nail thing was so cool and interesting, because it was so exciting that, you know, because most people, especially nowadays, like aren't fans of record labels, you know, but like you would wait for the new Tooth and Nail record to come out, like
absolutely,
whoever it was. And like it was so exciting, and that was the first time that I started getting interested in like oh, maybe I could play like some kind of music like that. And that was probably the catalyst for a lot of it, because I finally found some music that was actually cool to listen to.
Yeah.
Like Morelos Forest.
Oh, yes.
and Starflyer, of course.
Preach it.
And do you remember Curious Fools?
I do remember. They were like the U2 of Christian, or so they say.
They were like U2, but like kind of 70s rock. Like their first record is I still listen to it. Like I remember the last time I was at a Cornerstone, you know, they had those like $2 CDs of all like new old stock. I remember buying another copy of it just because I was like, I will never see this album again, ever. And so I need to have an extra copy. That record was one of my favorites ever.
Interesting.
So good. The singer was so awesome. It was super vibey. And like, it's sad to me. Like they put out a couple other records, but like, I remember when their second record was coming out, like it kept getting delayed. I think their label went under. It was Via Records.
Via, yeah.
And like that album, like you could never, it like came out eventually, but not really. And so no stores ever had it. And it was like crazy artwork. It was like, I don't know if you remember, it was called Red. And so the CD case was red, clear, you know, see-through red, but like all the artwork was insane. And so it was like almost like 3D looking, like you could put it under the thing and you could see different stuff under it. And so it was like, they must have spent so much money. It's probably when the label went under.
Probably went
but like that first record was so great. And I remember seeing them at Atlanta Fest, whatever one's at Six Flags, you know, they played like the late night show, you know, so like, I don't know, all the whatever bands.
The fringe bands.
Yeah, like they got to play the late night in like the campground looking bangs, you know, like under one of the like where all the covered picnic benches where they set up a stage. And it was probably like 100 people there, and they were so good and loud and they just awesome. Killed it. And so that was the only time I got to see them though. But yeah, they were one of my favorites. One band I was in was gonna open up for them when they were coming to Jacksonville, and they broke up, and I was
What band was that?
Heartbroken. El Camino.
I thought so. I was gonna ask. You know, it's funny. I remember. So I don't know if I ever told you that. You remember Smell of Wonder, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like
shows with them all the time.
Yeah. So I was like their manager per se, and so I would always see the name El Camino, and I remember being like, "Who's this band? What's this band all about?" And it was just. I just specifically remember it. How old were you guys? I was going to ask. We were going to get into this anyway, but how old were you guys when that started? Was that the first band or?
That was my first band, yeah. Honestly, probably 16, maybe 15 when we started, 15, 16, 17. We kind of went for a few years, but it all started, it started as a joke with me and my friend John, who became the singer. And we wrote this stupid song and had friends at the radio station, and they played it.
Was it who was it Metalhead Ed or
no, it was
Christian Rock, the Rock Shop.
No, it wasn't him. He would never have had us. It was what was he called? The Z-Man.
Oh yeah,
Do you remember
I do
him?
remember that. Yeah,
And it was kind of funny because we played it. We wrote a song about my sister's fish, and we just we weren't cool, we weren't cool kids at all. So we just like, oh, it was sort of silly song, and we went in there and like, hey, you should let us play this. And he's like, okay. So we played it, and literally like, this isn't an exaggeration. So many people started calling in, like it was for weeks at a time, and so we were like,
chart toppers.
And we were like, well, my parents had built a recording studio, like a small recording studio. And because they would make worship records to take to Brazil, because they were always going to Brazil. Anyway, so like they had this studio, and so we just went and recorded a proper version, I guess you would call it, and
a radio edit.
Then they started playing that, and then it just sort of took off. I mean, took off, for 16-year-old kids.
Platinum selling recording artists.
But then we were like, well, let's write another song. And so we did, and then they started playing that. And
do you have these recordings?
I think I still have a box that's
you need to send me it. I need to listen. I remember the band, I just don't remember what you guys sounded like, and it really bums me out that I didn't give you guys a chance back then, because I felt like we would have been really good friends.
Well, I mean, if you were Smell of Wonder's manager, you were probably like, oh, okay.
That's exactly what
I did. I think we played a lot of shows.
I think you did too. That's why I know specifically the name. And
we definitely if Smell of Wonder was like number 1, we were like number 2.5. We definitely weren't 3.
You weren't Burning Heart.
No, but we started getting asked to play shows. We were playing shows around town, all in Georgia. We started getting gigs, and like it just started happening. And so we were like, well, what do you do now? Like my older brother decided he was going to manage us. And actually he did a pretty good job. Like he would get us paid really good. And like, he's like, let's make an album. And so we made an album. And so there was a couple of years where we were playing regular shows, and it was fine. Like we definitely were not good at all when we first started, like kids and every kid that starts a band. But then like I felt like we kept writing, and our songs got a little better than they were originally. But yeah, we did that for a couple of years, and then we kind of just fizzled.
Yeah. What? How did you guys do the opening for? I know you said played a bunch of shows. Did you play mostly at like Murray Hill, and you said Georgia and stuff? But was it like opening for other bands at all, or were you just support?
Yeah. We would play different. Like we'd play Murray Hill. We'd play. Remember when New Covenant had all the shows going on? They had the best shows. I mean, I saw so many good shows.
Yeah.
We played shows there. I remember one time it was like us, Smell of Wonder, and Smell of Wonder opening for Eric Champion.
Yes. Okay. I have that. So Eric Champion found the Smell of Wonder song and then contacted them or us and was like, hey, I love your band. I want you to be my band.
Yeah.
They were like, okay. And he's like, I have a tour bus. And we were like, and they were like, okay. And so we literally went down to like, I want to say Fort Lauderdale for like a weekend. We did like a weekend thing where Smell would open and then they would play as his band. And they would be in like
Was that
Fort Lauderdale.
after or before that show?
I want to say it was after. It had to have been after because he probably was like,
Yeah,
oh,
'cause
this
he probably
band's
heard him.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so we did like Fort Lauderdale and then I think maybe Orlando and then Jacksonville or something like that. And I remember being on the RV and I was like, this is the life. This is it. We've made it. Of course, you know, probably making $100 a night or something.
Oh yeah, if that probably. But I remember that show was fun. And I like we had a really good drummer that we kind of found through another friend. And I remember, what's the drummer from Smaller Wonders name?
Mike Von Boston.
Mike, yeah. Mike loved him. Like Mike thought he was so good too, which we thought was awesome because everyone knew Mike was so good, you know? And so like, that was probably the only good thing about our band was we had a half decent drummer that could actually hold the song down while the rest of us tried to play the songs. But that Eric Champion show, I remember the bass player he had became the original bass player in All Star United.
Yes.
And so I remember when All Star United played that show with 7 Day Jesus and Third Day. You remember that show? Were you there?
No, but I was in I saw that tour in Lakeland.
Okay. And so, and All Star United, like they didn't have any music out at all. All they had at their merch table was like a photo, you know?
Yeah.
Like the big whatever. But I remember their photo was color, which no one ever did back then. And I was like, that's kind of cool. Look at that. But like they were so crazy live. Like people were convinced like it was all in the tracks because like the guitar player is like literally spinning around in circles across the entire stage, like holding his guitar out at the edge, like still playing. And it was like they had seen, they went and saw Blur play and then they were like, let's be like that.
Let's be Blur.
But I just remember they were so fun. And then, anyway, so I remember when, before they went on stage, I saw the bass player. He was like, hey, man. So we started talking and I was like, what are you doing here? And he's like, this is my new band. And anyway, but he had like told us about that band at that Eric Champion show. He was like, yeah, I don't really know how long I'm going to do this. I'm actually in this new band that's going to start up. But yeah, so we would play some shows and it was funny. Like I remember being at shows that Smell of Wonder was opening up for different bands. And like I was always like, I guess because I was so young and didn't understand really how to play in a band, but like they would be making all that huge chaos, you know, and then it would just like stop. And I'd be like, how did they all know how to do that at the same time? And you're like, oh, because they rehearse, idiot. You should try. But I still remember this one show that they did. And they were playing. I don't remember what song it was that it did that. Like out of nowhere, they just stopped for a second, and I was like, whoa, this is like they're like getting good. These guys are getting good.
I know.
But yeah. I know another band that was from Savannah that we played with a few times. Was called Mumble Lily. Do you remember them?
I don't think so.
Really cool, kind of like space rock kind of music that was really fun. But like we would play at Murray Hill and like lots of people would come.
Yeah.
So Tony really liked us, you know. But so then he would bring us in for like to open up for bigger touring bands that he didn't feel like we're gonna get a good crowd or whatever. But yeah,
that's awesome. That's very, very cool. So what was after El Camino? Was there any other bands, or was that pretty much kind of?
Well, I was also playing at my church a lot, and I kind of liked that more, probably because it was a lot easier.
Yeah.
But but I don't know, like because I grew up with Jeremy Bowser And so we actually started, after a couple of years with my first band, we had him come, and he was playing with us too. And so he was in that band too for a little while, but we were playing at church together, and then we were starting to do stuff like around town with him and doing different kind of churchy events like that. And so I liked that too. And when the guy that played bass with us at El Camino, when he got this girlfriend that he wanted to hang out with more than being a band, he left. And then I think we were just like, I don't know, let's just quit. We probably should have at least looked for a bass player, but we were just like, I don't know. Do you know another bass player? No. Okay. Well, let's just go on hiatus. But I was starting to play more at my church, which I really liked. Like, because I grew up all those guys that I grew up with at church there with Jeremy and my friend John and stuff, like, I still talk to them, you know, like, after all these years, like 30 years later, you know. And so it was just kind of a natural thing, and I started doing more like that. And really, my parents would do these huge worship conferences in Brazil. Like I said, like they still go down there, and they have like a really big ministry down there, kind of like evangelists. They go all over the country and do big crusade events, meetings, and stuff. And so for a while they were doing these worship conferences, and me and my brother John and Jeremy, and we would just put a band together and go down there and play them, you know. And so we made a few records doing that were kind of became really popular in Brazil. And so it was kind of a weird story, just because, you know, like when you're 17 years old and you're playing these huge events in Brazil, and then you're traveling around in the States when you're young, and like it just kind of started rolling, and that seemed to have more momentum, you know. And I don't know, I felt like for what I do as a musician and where my heart was at, like that was just what I was super into and loved and super passionate about. So I was so that kind of took precedence, and then with Jeremy, even like we would travel around, you know, Southeast some and play and local stuff a lot. And so we would do stuff like that. And so that I just kind of went into that direction. I just wasn't interested in like starting a band again, like I had. And so it was around that time, like I was probably 18 or so. I started getting connected with these musicians in Charlotte, and kind of through mutual friends that my parents had, and they would do these huge worship events and make these records that came out in the late 90s. It's a church called Morning Star.
Oh yeah.
And for a while, like they were putting out some really great music and kind of groundbreaking for the time. And they started coming to Jacksonville, and when they had just been doing it locally in Charlotte, and they would come down to Jacksonville to actually the church that I grew up in. And because my parents knew them, like they would start inviting me to play guitar with them, and that kind of started getting busy doing that. And I'd go to Charlotte and play. And the first time I went up there to play with those guys was the first time Mark McMillan had played live, kind of. Wow. You know. And so it was like one of the first songs he'd ever written, and I got to be there and play with him for it, you know.
That's so cool.
And like looking back, like I didn't know what I was doing, and it was like I was on stage and I was 18 or 19 maybe, and playing with all these like Nashville session musicians, and could barely like tune a guitar. And but then John Mark walks up and he's like got this like crappy amp and his guitar in one hand, and he's just all like kind of clumsy and puts it on a chair next to him, like pointing at the microphone. And they're like, "Can you might not want to do that with your amp so that we can hear you sing." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And it's just like, but then he played, like, as soon as he started singing his song, like, I don't know, like it did something to me. Like I was like, "Who is this? Like, what is it?" Like, even then, he like had it, And so I just remember playing this song with him, and after we played, I was like, I like playing with you. And we just became friends. And I would come back and forth between Jacksonville and Charlotte a lot, and really kind of found a community, and like I kind of felt like I had found where I belong, And so every chance I'd get, I'd go up there and just became, me and John Mark became really good friends. But there was also, like, at the same time, there was a lot of the other people who now have become super successful, like Josh Baldwin and Jonathan and Melissa Helzer, and just all that was from the same crew.
They were from Morningstar.
Eventually, yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's crazy.
Yeah, they lived a little north, and they kind of had their own thing, but they were always going down there and doing stuff with the church. And I started traveling a lot with the different artists that were from that church, and going all over Europe and all over the world, really. And I just loved it, and I felt like I would have moved up there at any second, but then they offered me a job, and then I was like, well, I'm going. And so that was probably, I think I was like 23. And looking back at it now, probably because I was young and dumb, and I had a girlfriend that had moved up there too, and that was a perfect excuse also to go. But like, I never, like, it takes me forever to make any sort of decision, so I can't believe that I was just like, sure, I'll move up there. Like, why not? It'll be fine. No problems. So when I moved up there, I worked at that church for a couple of years, but immediately, like, John Mark was making records, and I started playing with him. Mark Mathis was there. I was playing with him. I played a bunch of shows with Mark Mathis around town. I was in his band for a few years. And there was a really cool small music scene started happening there, Yeah. And that's really where I kind of like stepped into my as a musician and a performer and stuff.
That's awesome. Did you know that you felt like that you had a super, super incredible talent? I mean, I know you can play guitar, but did you feel like you were just upping the ante, I guess, or as you went? I don't know how to describe it. Did you just feel your craft being, just skillful at it?
Yeah. Because the type of musicians that I was, when I moved up there, that I started playing with, like, consistently, like almost on like a daily basis, were so much like at a higher level than I was.
Yeah.
I had no choice but to keep growing and keep trying to get better. And so, like, had I not done that, and had I not moved, I don't know what would have happened, because I wouldn't have become the musician for sure. But thankfully I did. But yeah, I don't know, like, because even in Jacksonville, like, before I moved, I was already starting to like play on records for people and kind of had a name for myself. Even, like, I think more because I was so eager to play, and I just wanted to play as much as I could with whoever. And and I could pick stuff up kind of quick and had a good memory and wouldn't forget stuff. And so like that kind of carried on over the course of time and kind of became useful. But I learned a lot. There's a guy named Leonard Jones that's a multi-instrumentalist, just a monster musician, and he really like took me under his wing and kind of really pushed me to get better and better. And that was like so valuable, just to have someone that like took the initiative to actually get me to a better place musically, because like back then, like I was so shy, like I would have never asked anybody. Like,
Yeah.
I was just too insecure or whatever. But yeah, so like definitely when I moved to Charlotte, and the more I was playing, and I just started getting more interested in like how to make my guitar sound different and not like a guitar, and bigger and wider, and just all kinds of like stuff like that. And then the more music I was listening to and getting into different kinds of music or different bands and stuff, and it just all started like clicking around that time for sure.
Yeah. That's really, really awesome. I'm sure that was such a pivotal time for you, just in general, at that age, that's when you're soaking in the world, or trying to at least stay your head above water,
Yeah.
So when you were playing with John Mark, is that I know you recorded with him? Which record was it? Just Economy, or did you do Beneath?
No. I was actually, for most of the first handful of records, even his first one that I didn't even play guitar on, I was there while he was recording it for a couple of weeks. And then his next record was the song Inside the Sounds of Breaking Down. I played all that. And then we did the Medicine.
Oh, yeah, that's right, Medicine.
And then, and the Medicine was really kind of the record that I kind of found my voice on.
That's my favorite record from him.
Yeah. And kind of him too, like together, like when we were recording it, I remember being in the studio and we're playing these songs and we're all playing live on the floor, and it's in this old abandoned lumber yard. We're inside the old offices with these like 25-foot ceilings, all wood room, and it just sounds insane. Like nothing's sound treated, and we're all there in a circle. And I remember playing those songs like Reckoning Day and Out of the Ground, and like it was all so fast. Like we'd go through the song, and then like it's like a super live record, but like we'd just start hearing stuff, and I just start coming up with guitar parts, and I just remember being like, I haven't heard anything like this, guys. Like this is crazy sounding. I just remember like my heart was like beating out of my chest for like 2 weeks while we were recording it, because it was so exciting feeling to me, Yeah. And that was like a really pivotal record for me, really, because John Mark like would just let me go. He would just let me take it, and I could, whatever my vision was, he really just let me go for it. And that's like a super unique thing to have happen with an artist.
Absolutely.
Especially with artists like him that like has such a clear vision, and he's bullheaded about it in a good way, and like he's always in his head, he's always thinking, but he would really just give me the reins and let me go. And so that record was probably one of the most important records for me as a musician and as a writer and stuff. And and so then like he got a record deal, and then we recorded some extra songs for it, and there was just this momentum and this like creative momentum that was happening, and it was just getting stronger and stronger, and the music was getting better and just way more like mature and intentional. And Yeah, and then the Economy record was next, and that was another great one. It was a little bit of a harder record to make, but
Yeah. So was that with Griff?
But yeah, and I love that record. I always call it his top secret record because the day it came out, or like the week it came out, like the record label went under, and so it was just like chaos and felt like it got really overlooked, you know. But it has some of his best songs he's ever written. And so that was another really fun one. And we were on the road and we were playing all over the country in these fun little clubs, and they were selling out, and it was just really exciting. And that was a really fun few years for sure.
Those are great records. I still listen to Medicine a ton. Like I said, it's my favorite from him. And Economies, I mean, they're all fantastic. I just, those, I remember when I first heard them, I was just, my jaw dropped too, because I was like, what is this? This is so different. Like, you could just feel the heart of the songs, in general. I was just like, my mind was blown.
I know. And like, I feel like that's why that's what like initially like made me love playing with him, or even before I was even playing with him, like the way like he sings like his heart's exploding, in like the best way. And it made me feel like that was happening to me, And so then it was just like, well, how do I respond to that with my guitar, It was it's always like that when we play together. It's just, there's something there that's so different and cool, because I feel like, he was the first singer I ever played with that felt like we really got each other, like friendship wise, but also musically. And so that was a great opportunity.
So after that, is that when you started all the Bright Lights with your brother and Jacob, or is that was that spurned from touring, or?
Yeah, I would say we did that probably, Medicine had come out, so sometime after that, but it wasn't, I had been touring with John Mark some, and me and John just wanted to make a record, and that's really all we knew. And so I remember I had a bunch of ideas of songs and a couple of things kind of constructed, but that was really all I had. And John had some stuff. And I remember telling John Mark that I wanted to do it. And he was like, well, I'll loan you the money. I was like, you will? And so he loaned me money to get started with it. And at the time it was, because we were good friends with Jacob, but at the time, like, we didn't know what it was going to be. And so we just had Jacob coming in, and we were kind of paying him to engineer it and play drums. I mean, paying him very little, but he was just into it because he loved, him and my brother had like they were doing records together and producing together. And so they had a studio at my brother's house, but I went down to Atlanta for a week, and we just recorded every idea that we had. And actually it was funny because the first record that John Mark did, I was just there hanging out. And when we were making that record, he just came down with me and hung out for the week. And so he was just in there. And I think quickly we started to realize, like, what we're doing is kind of cool. And I hadn't really heard anything like it before, because I hadn't listened to that genre of music, if I was even part of a genre. And so like, but I remember, well, I would go down, when I could, for like about a year, half a year maybe. And, we'd wake up in the morning, go down there to the studio, and then just be like, what do we think? What's up? That's awesome. Any ideas? Like, sometimes it would literally be like, just hit record and I'll just play for a few minutes. And I'd play around, mess around, and then I'd hit like one chord, and then I'd look at John and be like, okay, we just started something, and then we just build it. And so like when we did, there's a song on the first record called Chest of Drawers.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally built, because we didn't have, it was just me, John, and Jacob. And so it was like, Jacob would just start a click track, and I would just start playing like the basic melody, core melody of it.
Yeah.
And then I would get another track and just build it. And so like, I remember one of the first days that might have been the first song we did, but like by the end of the day, like we had, just with guitars, we had created this gigantic sound and thing. And then John played on it, and Jacob played on it. And like, so it was really just like that. We were building from the ground up every time. And so it was really fun and very all of it was real spontaneous, and like I wasn't trying to like come up with interesting guitar tones or whatever. It was just so fast, and I didn't really have time. I would just plug stuff in and be like, okay, that works. And like it ended up being like a pretty cohesive album of songs that all kind of made sense, like
absolutely
ones that are going in and out of each other, and like so we put that out, and that was probably that was the first time I'd ever gotten to do anything, or all of us had done something like that, and really for our own music and stuff. And that was a great kind of opportunity that really John Mark afforded us. And I remember back then, like you'd put it out and you wouldn't get money from like TuneCore for like 3 months or something, like it was like that long of a lag. I remember the first month of sales, I would like show John Mark how much it was, and he's like, I am gonna get paid back. And so I did. He got paid back. That was one of the most things I was most proud of. I got to make sure I paid him back. But that was a fun record, and really quickly kind of started getting a lot of buzz and attention on all like the indie music blogs. And it was cool. Like I literally didn't have any expectations. I definitely didn't think people were going to like it. I didn't know.
And it's a banger.
Yeah, I love that record. It's very interesting and fun to listen to. It's got a cool mix. The mix on it's really cool. Griffith mixed it.
Yeah,
kind of different. It's like kind of lo-fi, but still like kind of super ambient and epic too. And so it's really cool. There was one song. It's the last song. Was basically I had this idea of me, like kind of like a long extended jam and just me and Jacob and John, just the three of us, but more just like a not super layered and not super overproduced. And Griffith was there, and I remember he was recording us while we were doing it because Jacob was playing drums, and it was just getting so crazy and loud. And I remember looking at Jeremy. He turned around from the board, and he's got earplugs in, and he's just looking at me. He's like, "Whoa, what's happening?" But it's a fun record for sure.
I love Griff. He's hysterical.
He is sweet as
he's so ridiculously talented, man.
And he sings some stuff on that record too.
Does he really?
Really awesome harmonies. Yeah.
I didn't know that. Like the background.
Just like background harmony stuff. Sometimes like he did the very first track. There's like some singing on it, and then there's these like almost Beach Boy harmonies that are like bendy, and it's him. It's so cool.
Did he sing on? So my favorite song on that record's "The Door." That's like I freaking listen to that song all the time. Did he sing on that too?
No, that's all John.
John's got a voice of an angel. My goodness.
And when I remember that song was kind of done, and it didn't have him. It didn't have any singing on it. And I was out on the road, and him and Jacob sent me. He was like, "Listen to this," and he just sent me a clip, and it was of him singing that stuff. And I remember at first I did not like it. I was like, "No, we're not going to do that." And he's like, "Yeah, we are." And I was like,
I can totally see him saying that.
I mean, now I can't even imagine not having it.
Yeah.
You know, but like, but I remember I was just stuck in my demo land, I think. But yeah, he like brought that whole record to such a different level when he started like putting words, even though they're very simple and not a lot, like just short little things. Like he made it a completely different animal when he did that.
Absolutely. Man, I love that record. It's so good.
Yeah. And then the next John Mark tour, I think after that album came out, we opened for the opening band. Yeah.
That's awesome. What a cool opportunity to get your own music out. How packed were those shows?
Pretty good. Like he was probably playing like 300 to 500 cap clubs
at that time.
Yeah, and I mean back then it was very excited. Like people, down the sidewalk just waiting to get in the doors. Like good Christian kids at a secular club, at like a rock and roll club. They're outside at the doors at like 5, and they're like, these kids are nerds. What are they doing out here? You're not supposed to show up until the headliner's going to play. But no, it was so awesome. Like everyone, because it was such like a grassroots thing with John Mark, like his fans were so great and just so happy that it was happening, And so they were so supportive. They were amazing.
That's awesome.
But they would just hang out and want to bring us stuff, gifts and whatever. It was always great. Yeah.
It's cool. So, and then I think I think I was looking on Spotify the other day. I think it's already been 9 years since you put out The Wind and the Waves. Isn't that about that?
Yeah.
That's a great record too. Can you touch on that a little?
Yeah. Well, we started kind of getting attention for All the Bright Lights, that is, and we were in the process of signing a record deal, and so we went back into the studio and made a record. And this one, it's a very different record than the first one. I like the way it sounds and feels probably better than I like the first one. I don't think not all the songs are as good, I guess, but it's way more raw and just like rock and roll feeling. Yeah. But this time we kind of just wrote everything in together while we were recording. It kind of different because we both had a lot of ideas that we would hash out for the first one, but this one, like, we would just get together and just start playing and just jamming, and then until we came up on something that we thought was cool, then we'd just keep developing it. And we recorded it in John's house, and that was probably, I don't know, I was like having a real rough time, like emotionally, and going through a lot of like kind of mental health stuff, and so I wasn't super on my game, but what we came up with is I love it because I feel like the melodies overall are really way stronger, and it's like a lot of like the first one, like it was almost like I don't know, like a lot of the melodies of the first one were more kind of like a little bit adult contemporary-ish, and not the way they sound, but the way they are constructed and the melodies themselves. And this one was just more like rip your head off. And so there's a few songs on there that were so much fun. The opening song on that is so good. Ooh, It gets me. John just nailed it with that, and it's called Steps. And this sort of like a very trippy. Like if you listen to it with headphones, a lot of that record is like you'd think we were all like stoned out of our minds when we were recording it, but I don't think we were though. But we
the Holy Ghost.
Yeah, that was a fun record. But I feel like we decided to get out of that. We didn't ever sign the deal, like it was heading that way. Then we backed out of it, and we were all so busy doing other things, gigs, that it's sort of, we lost a lot of momentum. We waited too long to put the record out. And we played like a release party show with Flagship the day it came out. Like our record stuff.
Oh, I forgot about Flagship. Oh yeah.
We played like a big show in Charlotte at the neighborhood theater, and that was kind of it for that. But yeah, I'm super proud of that record. And I've got the same deal I had with the first one. We're supposed to be putting that one out on vinyl too. Yep.
Is there any copies left of the first record at all?
Yeah.
Sick. I need to get one.
I think Old Bear is the one that put it out, you know? And I think I would assume they still have
just pressed 1 million copies.
Yeah, they were probably very ambitious. They probably pressed 50 and just don't have the heart to tell anybody about them.
No way. No way. That record bangs.
No, I know. No, that I think it sold really well, actually. I got tagged and a lot of people were super excited it came out on vinyl. But yeah, and then we kind of just let that be the last record. I think our last gig actually was, we played a huge corporate event at
I remember John telling me that
Gwinnett Arena, and like got paid. Was
the crowd just like amazing? Oh, the bright lights.
Well, the thing that was funny was we did it twice actually. They would bring us in to be like walk-in music, just like space, like coolest vibey walk-in music, and we would just play our songs. But this time they had gone and filmed the Atlanta Aquarium, and we were playing in front of this gigantic screen, and there's like whale sharks swimming behind us, and just it's kind of like one of our dreams come true. Like I think we had actually dreamed about playing at that aquarium, and so that was our last triumphant gig, I think. But
that's hilarious.
That's been it. And I've been writing for years for something new. I don't know what it'll look like. John's we were talking busy. A few months ago. Yeah, he called me a few months ago though, and was like, "Let's make a new record."
Oh.
And so I don't know if we will or not, but
you should.
I know we should. But yeah, I have a few ideas for some projects that I haven't fully panned out or thought out, but different ideas. But I think it would be fun to make one more at least. But
do it
one more time. Who knows?
Who's to say?
But who's to say? But I am super thankful for that we got to do that, and the things we got to do. It did a lot for me, just creatively, just to be able to kind of get the stuff living inside my brain for a while, just to be able to get it out. And so it was fun, and I, getting to play with two of my best friends was the best.
Yes.
Yeah.
So of all those, previous records we've talked about, can you just tell me what your favorite song and your favorite record is? I think I have a feeling I know your favorite record just because of what you said earlier, but I could be wrong. What are your most prized possessions of records?
Of like records I've been a part of.
Yeah. What? I guess what's your favorite song you've ever recorded, and what's your favorite record you've ever recorded?
Probably I would say my favorite record I've ever recorded was probably The Medicine. I'd say definitely up there. Probably
That was
is
right.
my favorite. Probably my favorite song I've ever written and recorded is Chest of Drawers on that first All the Bright Lights.
So
record.
good.
So that was probably the one I was most proud of, that it kind of came out how I envisioned it. And yeah. Yeah, those two.
That's cool. Those are what I would think too.
Awesome.
So I want you to saddle up your horses for this next intro. That's good. So what brought you to, I guess, the Stephen Curtis Chapman world?
Well, it was really weird. I was in the Cincinnati airport and my flight got delayed for like 17,000 hours. And so, and I was just sitting in this little kind of section that was like in the very middle of like the huge open space in between all the terminals, and sitting on this chair miserable. And I got this email, and the guy introduced himself as Stephen Curtis Chapman's manager, and saying that Stephen was kind of dreaming up what his next few years looked like and really wanted a guitar player that could do what I do. And I thought one of my friends was playing a joke on me, because I was like, this is the most random email I could have possibly gotten. And so I think I texted my brother, John, and I was like, John, I just got this email from Stephen Curtis Chapman's people. And he goes, oh yeah, that guy actually reached out to me to get your number. But I was like, I'm not giving you his number. And I just gave him your email. And so,
Such a John thing.
I know. So yeah, he must have he's like, who is this guy? They reached out, and like, I didn't know him. Honestly, I never listened to his music. I knew like the chorus of The Great Adventure, but it was just never something I had ever really heard, because I never listened to CCM. But and so I eventually got on the phone with the manager and talked through what he was wanting to do, and he was like, it was kind of a funny conversation, because he was very much being a manager, He's like, oh yeah, so he would just love it if you could play with us on some stuff. I was like, oh, okay. And he was like, well, kind of talking business stuff, and he was like, but you don't live in Nashville, right? I was like, no. And he's like, ooh, that might be an issue. And I was like, you called me. You called me, man. Not an issue for me. I was like, I mean, it's not an issue if you don't live in Nashville. Every musician knows you get to where you need to go. But
yeah.
So they basically asked me to come out and play some shows, and they sent me some songs to learn, and it was like probably 5 songs. And I remember going through them, and his songs are not easy to learn or play. And so I was like trying to figure them out and learning them and spending some, a couple of weeks probably. And I was like, he's saying he's headlining festivals. This is not enough music. And so I asked again, and then they sent me about an hour's worth more when I had like 3 more days left to play them. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be a nightmare. And so I just spent hours every day, all day, for about a week, trying to learn all his songs and figure out all these crazy unison lines that you're supposed to play with the whole band. And the first show was him headlining a festival, and he wasn't like, we flew in, it was in New York, we flew in, had a sound check at 6 o'clock in the morning. He wasn't even there. And it's a 3-piece band. They, you know, and it's no tracks. There's a click and that's it. And they want to run a couple songs because it's sound check. There's no one singing. And like, I've just learned, 90 minutes of music, and I'm just trying to be like, okay, which song is this? Like, I can't even remember. And I remember them being like, all right, we're good. You good, James? And I was like, I guess. I was like, well, he didn't even check his acoustics, so I guess turn that up in my ears and then turn his microphone up, and we'll just see what happens. And so I remember it was literally like, it was like an old school movie or something, like kind of meeting them as you're walking on stage sort of thing, nice to meet you. And I was like, these guys have a lot of faith in me. I was like, what if I'm not even good at, like, what if I didn't learn them? Like, and so I remember going up on stage, and Micheal W. Smith was direct support, and Stu G's playing.
Oh yeah, from
and I was like, and him, just hero. And I knew him a little bit, and I was like, oh, this is going to be so embarrassing. He's going to just hear me like fumble through a whole set. But I actually made it through alive, which I was very thankful for. But it was definitely kind of touch and go a little bit. Like, I didn't mess up, but there was definitely, I'd be like playing a song, trying to remember that song, but then thinking about the next song, because like, not only am I just playing, like I'm starting songs, like I'm the only electric guitar player, and like and so it was so stressful. And I was getting off the stage, and I was like, wow. And so then I played like a run of shows for a week, I think maybe, and that was it. And then like I didn't talk to him for a while. And I was like, that wasn't even worth it. Like, that was so much work. I never even heard back from him. But it was great. And like, he's the sweetest guy, and they were all so welcoming and nice. And but then I was in the process. We were kind of in process of moving to Nashville. And so when it was literally probably the first real day I was in town, I ran into him randomly, like this time of year, like Christmas time. And he was like, what are you doing here? Did you move here? And I was like, yeah, just today. I just got here. And he was like, he's like, I cannot believe I just ran into you. He's like, I'm on tour. I just flew in an hour ago, and I'm only here because my wife's here. I was going to run in and say hi to her. Then I got to go back out on the road. And he's like, I want you to play. And I was like, okay. And so, 24 hours later, they had sent me all their tour dates. And so I spent a couple of years touring with him, and it was great.
That's awesome. I love when I grew up listening to him, that was on the rotation in my household. So he's super talented dude. I love his son's bands too, or Colony House.
Oh yeah. Great. I think that's how
you got
the call, because they loved John Mark McMillan music, and like, so they knew of me, and I think that's how. I think they told him, maybe, like,
I gotcha.
You should get James Duke to play guitar for you. He was probably like, who is that? but yeah, his boys are such great guys, and they're so good. Yeah, their band's awesome.
I think you got me on the list for a show for them one time. I forget. Down in St. Dog.
Happy to help.
Yeah. So after the Stephen Curtis, did you play with Smitty, right?
Yeah. I played, really, I've only played with him twice. And they're both for like live records. So the first one, I got a call from the producer who I knew, and he was like, "Hey, we're doing this record. Um, really just kind of wanted to get an extra guitar player because the Stu G was playing on it, who's again my hero. And he's like, so we'd love to have you. And so that was like the first time I had met Smitty and most of his guys, and so I played on a record that he did a couple of years ago called Waymaker, and so, but that was kind of it. Like I didn't really do anything else. And then like maybe a year later, they called me again and they're like, we're doing this huge live event at Bridgestone Arena and we're going to record it and we're going to do all this stuff. And you want to come play for that? And I was like, sure, I'll just be the recording guy. But so I did that too. And it was awesome. He's another, like, it's really cool because Micheal W. Smith, Stephen Curtis Chapman, Amy Grant, like these artists that are still around, still doing it, invented the genre. And they're all so sweet, so kind, like no ego, they're just great people. And it's kind of encouraging.
I love that.
It's really awesome, man. But so I got to do those 2 records with him, which I was super honored,
Absolutely.
It was just their normal band and they just added me to it. So it was great.
Did you ever on any of those times just look over and be like, I'm playing with Micheal W. Smith right now? What the hell is happening?
Yeah. And for rehearsals for that first record I did, Stephen Curtis Chapman stopped by to say hey. And so he walks up on stage and then him and Smitty are standing there talking to each other. And literally you looked around the room and everyone's just watching them. Everybody's like, this is crazy.
Look at that.
Yeah. And so, it's wild. One of my favorite memories of those Smitty records was he had everybody come over to his house to kind of talk through what his vision for the recording was. So, we ate dinner, then we all went into his living room and we all kind of sat around and he just wanted to talk about it. And and he's so, I can't emphasize how sweet and kind and just down to earth he is. And so he's just talking and kind of see it doing like this and this and like this song, like I really want it to sound like this. And so he just gets up, runs over to his piano and just plays a whole song. And I was just standing there sitting there and I was like, this is such a weird situation I have found myself in. And right then Stu G comes over and slaps me on the shoulder and he goes, no big deal, just Micheal W. Smith playing songs for us in his living room.
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical.
It was so cool. Even the fact even Stu G being there, and his bass player is Otto Price, who they call Sugar Bear, who was the original DC Talk.
Yeah.
He was the guy Toby Mac would run across the stage, jump in the air onto his back.
Yep.
And he would carry him all over the stage while he was playing bass. So he's there and I'm sitting next to him and I'm just with all these kind of giants in the music industry. And it was one of those moments where I was like, how did I do this?
Yeah. I can't imagine.
Yeah, it was fun.
Was Amy Grant backstage?
Oh man. She's the best.
I love her. I took my wife to see her about a year ago. No, 2 years ago, I guess. And she was unbelievable.
She is. She got really hurt a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I saw that.
A few months ago. She had a bicycle accident and really injured herself.
That's awful.
Hit her head really hard. But she's doing good now.
Well, that's good. So after all of that, I wanted to kind of touch on your time with the silent film. British band that I love. So tell me kind of how that kind of happened.
Well, after that Economy record and the tours and stuff, I had stopped playing with John Mark, and I was kind of just in this kind of figuring out what I was going to do next time. And funnily enough, John Mark's manager called me and was like, "Hey, I've got these friends in this band from England called A Silent Film, and the guitar player in the band has left, and they need somebody, and I thought of you, and I didn't know if you'd be interested or not." And so, hold on, Jeremy, 1 second. Yes, Taylor. Anyway, and so I listened to their stuff, a couple of their songs, and really dug it. So I was like, yeah, I'll at least meet them, talk to them. And so I had a Skype call with the drummer, whose name is Spencer, and he kind of told me what they were doing and what they had been doing. Because I don't think I had ever heard of them before. And I know that they had some traction. They definitely had some traction. And as an independent band, had some pretty good radio success in the States. But so he kind of told me what was going on. We, hit it off a little bit. And then I had another call. And I told him, I was like, kind of told him like what had been going on. And I was like, I've just been, I don't know if I even want to tour right now. I don't know if I want to do that. I might just need a break and so I was like, I'll call you back. Let's talk in a week. And I listened through more of their songs and kind of just felt good about it. And so I was like, let's do it. So I did their US tour that they had scheduled, which was really fun. But it's funny, like I met them on Skype, and
it's amazing.
But I could tell that they were funny, and that I think they were a little concerned because they knew that I was like a Christian musician, and so they'd be like, we'd be on Skype and they'd be like, quick question, we're putting together a rider for backstage, like, is there anything you want? And I was like, I don't know, like
just a couple Bibles.
I was like
12 pack of Bibles.
I was like, what's on the rider? And they'd be like, oh, like usually like a case of beer, bottle of whiskey, bottle of vodka, a couple bottles of wine. Like, is there anything else you would want? I was like, no, all that sounds great. And they're like, oh, okay, thank God. And I was it was so funny. I was like, no, as long as I have my own personal prayer closet, y'all can do whatever you want. But and so it was kind of the same thing. Like, I had to cram all their songs, and they were like a steady 4-piece band for years, and so like I kind of figured that it was going to be really hard for them because they're having to find a new member. Not necessarily a member, but they had to be able to find a guy that was going to fit in. And so like I worked really, really hard and learned their songs. Like I spent probably a month. I think I had about a month, and like it's like clocking in every day, but I didn't feel like I got enough time the day. I'd wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning the next day and keep going, and so I flew out to Phoenix. I like shipped an amp out already ahead of me and like did all that stuff, and flew into Phoenix. They picked me up from the airport, and it was so weird because like you talk on Skype or something and you kind of get used to that, but then like you're in person and like I'm in their band van and it smells bad, and I was like, what have I done? This is weird. But then they ended up just being the best guys, and we spent a week rehearsing, and then we just toured the whole country. It was and great songs. They had their fan base was like the most devoted. like I would be after shows, be meeting their fans and stuff, and when I say fans, I mean like fans. Like they follow them on tour. They're like, this is my 50th show. I'm like, wow. 50? Like 50? 50, like 50 shows? I was like, how do you do that? And they're like, well, like, how do you even afford that?
Yeah, I know.
They're like, well, it's like going on vacation. So you plan on it and you take a week off and you see 5 shows. I'm like, oh my God.
Good Lord.
But like, honestly, like it was crazy, really. Like you'd see the same people in LA that you'd see in New York City.
Unbelievable.
Like, and so there's definitely they were great with their fans too, like really personable, like they knew them, knew all their like first name basis, like knew what's going on with them. They're being showered with gifts every show. Like it's hilarious. I could not believe it. I was like, but that's how they were able to actually do it, you know? Like,
yeah.
And so that was one of the first times it made me realize like how important it is to build that relationship with fans and not make yourself like don't be unavailable.
Exactly.
Like it's huge to go and hang out at the merch table. It's huge to hang out after the show and talk, and just as long as people want to talk to you and are standing in line to talk to you, you stand there and talk to whoever, because that's what makes people not forget. That's what makes people want to bring their friends to the next show. And so anyway, that was the first tour too. Like it was kind of a brutal tour. It was fun, but it was like really long. I think it was like 4 weeks, whole country.
Was it headlining or were they supporting?
Yeah,
or?
It was headlining.
Who opened? Anyone good?
It was an LA band called Hands. Kind of quirky, kind of indie thing band that were really great, but I hadn't kept up with doing anything anymore. But it was really fun. I felt like at the end of the tour, the last show was actually in Charlotte, which was nice. I just got to go sleep in my bed that night. But
That's awesome.
I had made a handful of really good friends. They took really good care of me, treated me great.
Yeah.
Like, made sure I always felt like part of it. And then we did a couple one-offs, and then we recorded a record. With them. We spent like 3 weeks at Sonic Ranch, which was amazing.
I bet.
They had some pretty serious backing for their band, that have be afforded the luxury to record for 3 weeks at Sonic Ranch was awesome. But yeah, so it was like their last record, the Untitled record I played on. And then I had moved to Nashville, and I was busy, and they really wanted me to be in the band, but I just, for where I was at, like I couldn't do that, I couldn't really financially do it and have it make sense, and I just couldn't be gone that much, and I was already busy like touring with a couple other acts, but I like hooked him up with another really awesome guitar player.
Was it Matthew?
Yeah,
I was gonna say I talked to him the other day. He's incredible.
Yeah, and I remember I was so excited because I was like, guys, I just can't do it, but I'm so happy because I know who you should get. And so I was like, it makes me so excited. And so I left them in good hands. And but even like my brother played. Was there. I hooked him up with my brother or something. He plays some shows with him, a couple other guys. But yeah, I remember like probably 3 years after I had toured with them, I was randomly in Charlotte. I think it might have been when I was in town for that John Mark record, and they were playing, and so I went and saw them. And you would not believe it, like probably 15, 20 of the people there remembered me from the other tours, and were like talking my ear off, so excited. How are your kids? Like, how are
cool. That's awesome.
But they were great guys. It was really fun. The shows were really fun. They were really talented, great singer, great drummer. I loved their songs.
Yeah, they were really fantastic. I saw them actually, I was in Tampa at a festival your brother was playing. That's how I met Matt. And I love Slow Meadow. So it's like yeah, that was cool. They were really they were awesome. So very cool, dude. I was just was curious about that. So we'll start to wind down here a little. I just kind of was wanting to talk about your new gig with Centricity Records. Just tell me how that came up, what you're doing with that, and then we'll kind of close it out. So
Yeah, well, kind of started for me around the beginning of 2019. It's been another couple of years just on the road and touring a lot, and I was just really burned out and was at a place where I felt like I was like at this weird point where I'd be on tour and everything was great. I was like, my career has been so amazing, and I'm super blessed and fortunate, and like everything was always really not everything was nice, great tour buses, great hotels and everything, but like I can't sleep on tour buses. Lots of people can, I can't. And I don't sleep good in hotels really either.
Same here.
Like, and so I got to the point where like, I'd be out for a month and I'd come home and I'd just be like a wreck. Like just couldn't, it'd take me like weeks to recover. And like, I just felt like crap every time. And so I was just burned. And so at the beginning of 2019, I was just like, all right, I'm done. I'm not going to tour anymore. I'm going to only play with a couple artists that I really love and believe in and feel like it's a good fit. But other than that, I'm just going to focus on being home and working in town and stuff. And so that's what I did. I declined lots of tours that I was like, probably a stupid idea, but I'm going to do it. And I just was home, and it was like the best year. I felt like, even for my kids, like I felt like my relationships with them got so much better, especially my daughters. And it was just a great year looking back at it. And it was the end of that year that a man named John Mace, who started a label called Centricity Music, called me and reached out and just said, we're working on some new stuff, and someone suggested I talk to you about it. And so I went and met with him, and he told me like what they were looking to do with the label and kind of build up a roster of worship style music that they had never kind of focused on before. And we talked, and had lots of meetings, and then they invited me to join them at the beginning of 2020. And I had kind of wanted to do an A&R job for a few years, and had talked to a label before that didn't work out. And so it was definitely on my radar, but it turned out to be, if I wouldn't have made that decision at the beginning of 2019, I don't think I would have been in a place, or even it would have been on my radar to like listen for an opportunity like this. But I started it's like the middle of February in 2020, and it's been great. But it was exactly like a month, I believe, that I got everybody that was at the label together and been like, hey, it's crazy with everything going on. Let's just go home for the rest of the week, flatten the curve, and then we'll reconvene. And then we never went back to the office for a year and a half. So it's been great. I could not believe how fortunate and blessed that I was that had a job through the entire pandemic, and when dozens and dozens and dozens of friends that just got sent home from tours and had no idea what they were going to do. It was one of the hardest. That was just awful. Absolutely. Everybody went through it, but and so it's been a really great opportunity. It's been really fun. I love everyone at that label. They're all great people. The artists and bands are really awesome. And it's given me a chance to sort of help start up a new kind of wing of the label and try to find some good artists. And it's great. For me, like, it's been such a cool opportunity. And just like career-wise, it's like fun to like be able to be on both sides of the industry. And so yeah, I've been doing A&R it'll be 3 years in February.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something as a child I wanted myself. Now I'm definitely not in that world, but I think that's so cool because it's such a cool, I don't know, it's just kind of like you get to go out there and just explore bands and artists and all that stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been awesome. It's been great. I've got a couple artists the deal's not done, but I'm really excited about that we're gonna bring over, and one that I've played you that I'm excited about a lot.
Yeah, and so it's super good. I'm really, really stoked on that. That's exciting, dude. That's really cool.
Thanks.
Well,
it has been great.
Dude, it's so good.
Thanks for talking to me.
Yeah, man, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for taking time. I know we've been trying to get it to happen, but I really appreciate your time, dude. And hopefully we can link up sometime soon. Maybe when you're down this way. Are you coming down this way at all soon at all?
I'll get to come more now because my parents moved back. So
Oh, okay.
I'll probably be there at least a couple of times coming.
Yeah, well, let me know. Just shoot me a text, and maybe I'll see you. Get to see you and your brother at some point as well.
Awesome. Would love that.
Cool,
You're the best.
dude. No, you're the best.
You're the best.
You're the bester.
You are.
Bro, find me that El Camino stuff. I legit want to hear it.
Fine.
All right, buddy. All right, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
All right, bud. Bye-bye.
Hey, I'd like to thank you, the listener, for stopping by to this latest episode. I'd also like to thank James Duke for his valuable time and his amazing stories. It's awesome to reconnect with an old friend and hear his perspectives on the past, the present, and the future. Thank you, James, for confirming the rumors. Please stay tuned for what we have in store for the future and the upcoming guests we have in line. And I'd also like to wish you a happy belated Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. On to 2023.